a community has been in disaster or war or some other crisis, and it's come back from the brink of disaster and been able to survive, shown that resiliency. CNN, the New York Times, everyone who was there to see and to hear has now cleared out. And that's when our next presenter, Courtney Spence, says that the real storytelling actually should begin. And if you ask yourself who should be telling these stories, according to Courtney, we all should. And so she's going to present for us today, Courtney Spence, with the transformative power of multimedia storytelling. Courtney.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I do have, sorry. So we live in a time when we are bombarded with messages of fear, economic decline, disaster, poverty, disease, famine, and war. The overwhelming negativity of the media paralyzes people. People stop listening, they shut down, they tune out. They lose interest, they lose hope, they lose curiosity, and at worst become apathetic. But the thing is, progress is happening in every corner of the globe. I have seen it firsthand in places you would least suspect finding it. For the past decade, I have been personally inspired by stories of progress, but equally disappointed at how few of these stories most of us hear. Stories of solutions are important. I'm not just talking about hope. I'm talking about the reality of what is happening and what is possible when people in dire situations come together to face problems and create solutions. I started a company called Students of the World when I was an undergrad at Duke University 11 years ago, based on this sole idea. The next generation of leaders in this country, my generation, as citizens of America, would have to become students of the world. A student of the world is someone that goes out into the world to seek knowledge and understanding of not just global problems, but global solutions. Our organization mobilizes the creative capacity of college students to document individuals and organizations doing great things around the world. The media platforms, the equipment, the software may change, but our purpose remains the same: to empower young people to shine a light on the most inspirational stories on the planet and return home to inspire us to activism and engagement. I have traveled to places like the West Bank, Kosovo, Uganda, New Orleans, and most recently in Haiti. A 47-second earthquake in Haiti took 230,000 lives and left 1.6 million people without homes. These are places where you would expect to find extreme problems, and believe me, you do. But just the same, you find people who wake up every day and make the choice to keep fighting, keep surviving, and to create a better life for their family, their friends, their community, and their country. You meet young people who choose to move back to places like Port-au-Prince and New Orleans to help rebuild their neighborhood. You find strength, you find unity, you find life, and it makes you want to be a better person. Survivors have stories to tell, and we need to hear their stories. We need to raise their voices. 3 communities in particular have had a profound personal impact for me over the course of the past 10 years: Uganda, New Orleans, and Haiti. I first traveled to Uganda in 2003 with the University of Texas team. Since 1987, the Acholi tribe of northern Uganda has undergone one of the worst atrocities in recent history. The Lord's Resistance Army, the LRA, has ravaged the north. They've kidnapped 25,000 children to use as soldiers, sex slaves, and forced laborers. Every single household in northern Uganda has been affected. When I returned to Uganda in 2009, the LRA had moved to the Democratic Republic of Congo to target them, and therefore relative peace had come to the north. And while the main town, Gulu, of the north was bustling with building and development, many of the organizations and journalists had left because it was no longer an emergency. When people run out, storytellers need to run in. Because recovery and rebuilding does not happen overnight. And this was the time to invest in Uganda. This was the time when the community was mobilized and ready to rebuild. This was the time to seek out and share their stories. We were asked to shine a light on the Uganda Fund. The Uganda Fund is providing long-term investment in northern Uganda, and they are supporting one of the most innovative and courageous projects that I've ever seen.
One of the most amazing things in northern Uganda is the ambition of the youth. Every youth and child that you talk to, the thing that they want is to go to school.
We were brought here as child mothers, people who were once abducted and now brought back to school. And it's a privilege for us to be brought back to school.
We started this school basing on the fact that this girl could not be accepted in the formal governmental school because of their situation.
We have lovely teachers and we have a good daycare. We are studying with our children. You go to class with her or him. We are free. It's all about you knowing that at the end of the time, you don't have to get back to your past. You should make a future.
This is a crucial time for northern Uganda because it's poised at that fragile point between conflict and peace. We see the Clinton Global Initiative as enabling us to take what we've got in northern Uganda and scale it up to a point where it can make a really significant difference in preparing the next generation of leadership for the Acholi people.
It's the most critical point for positive investment because the international community usually responds only as a reaction to an emergency. It's very difficult to convince them that this is the time because we're actually having some positive momentum. You can invest in that momentum and then we won't see a slide back to war.
So I became familiar with a young girl named Catherine. Catherine is vibrant, she's full of life and optimism and always smiling. At the age of 12, Catherine was abducted from her home. More specifically, she was abducted by her very own cousin, who had been kidnapped months before her. She spent 3 horrible months in the bush. She somehow found the courage to escape in the middle of the night, made her way through the jungle and back to a child soldier rehabilitation camp in Gulu. What struck me about this was not just her story, but the way in which she told it to me. It was very matter of fact. There was very little emotion in her voice. These were simply the facts of her own life. And then she almost immediately transitions from her survival story to talking to me about how happy she is now. She's in school. She has hope for the future. She's volunteering. She wants to contribute to her community because she says, we only do great things when we work together. Then she says to me, we have this saying in Acholi, you cannot do a handstand with just one hand. I stopped in my tracks, and we were walking side by side, I stopped. This girl had been through hell and back, and here she was teaching me an absurdly profound lesson that I would carry with me for the rest of my life. Because at some point, Catherine made a choice. She faced a fork in the road, a tipping point. She could have chosen to react to her circumstances by retreating from life, retreating from others, and retreating from responsibility. But instead, she chose to accept her life for what it was and see the possibilities of life before her. In reintegration with her community, she found an opportunity not only to make her life better, but make it better for others. Some people may think that Catherine's choice is the road less traveled. But I think this is how the human spirit survives. I think this is why communities can rebuild after earth-shattering disasters. I think this is why there is real hope for our future. But we have to hear the stories from the Catherines of the world. We have to know that the human spirit, our own spirit, can rise up from the most atrocious of events, stronger, better, and more connected with our world. We have to hear these stories because they teach us that positive change, that survival is not only possible, it's happening. And it's important to seek these stories out, whether at home or halfway across the world. I've been fortunate enough to work with the community, the neighborhood of Broadmoor in New Orleans since 2007. A few months after Hurricane Katrina in January of 2006, the Bring Back New Orleans Commission came out with a report saying that the neighborhood of Broadmoor would not be rebuilt, but instead turned into a drainage park because it sat in a very low-lying area of the city. In this moment in time, the community of Broadmoor had to make a decision. They could go down to City Hall and protest the city government and say this is not fair and this is not just. Or they could turn inward to find the strength and the unity within to rebuild the neighborhood themselves. And this is exactly what the people of Broadmoor did. They organized, they formed committees and block captains and reinvigorated the Broadmoor Improvement Association. And today, Broadmoor has rebuilt more effectively and more efficiently than most other neighborhoods in New Orleans. For the 5th year anniversary of Katrina in August of 2010, Broadmoor decided to commemorate with a small open mic event for residents only. Residents were asked to share their stories, and we were asked to shine a light on the progress that the neighborhood had made in the last 5 years. I want to show you just a brief clip from that film.
So all of this was completely destroyed, all the plumbing ripped out. I mean, you see the pictures, the old pictures, and there's just plumbing supplies and, you know, everything completely destroyed. What's great is we've got smart boards and computers and, you know, just technology for the kids. And, you know, kids of every background and economic level have the right to have that kind of exposure.
You can look at physical evidence, whether it's the trees being planted on Napoleon Avenue or Claiborne Avenue, whether it's the new Wilson School, whether it's the plan for the new library. I mean, there's tangible evidence of how the investment of your personal time, your personal effort can actually translate into a broader, you know, return for the entire Broadmoor community.
We are a neighborhood and an association to be duplicated. We've brought back more people. We've improved our way of living.
Broadmoor is family, you know, and I really feel that that's why we never left, because we felt the security, we felt the love, we felt the neighborhood.
The help we give to neighbors and the importance of bringing back the neighborhood and the sharing of resources with other neighborhoods. For many of us, this is probably the cause of our lifetime.
So after our film played, the residents stood up to share their stories. They read poems, letters, shared photos. Children sang songs about their memories of Katrina. Every neighbor had a story. And I was in awe of how we had been accepted as one of this community, one of this neighborhood. Because in working to understand and capture their stories, we had been able to form personal bonds of friendship and connection that were extremely profound. And here we all were together, not just remembering Katrina, but celebrating the community that came together to truly build back Broadmoor better than before. They say that true learning only happens through reflection. Life lessons don't happen in the moment, but when we take the time to reflect upon it. And this is exactly what storytelling prompts us to do. Hal, one of the community leaders you saw in the film, during his interview, he posed to us this question. He said, "We all know that it takes a village to raise a child. What does it take to raise a village? What's it going to take to raise Haiti?" Haiti, just saying the name of the country brings up images and preconceived notions from all of us. I was there this last June with a group of students who was documenting the progress that is happening on the ground through organizations who are being funded in part by the Clinton Bush Haiti Fund. Haiti is home to the highest density of nonprofits per capita in the entire world. In the aftermath of the earthquake, the nonprofit community has been scrutinized for its lack of efficiency and effectiveness. But I'm here to tell you, we worked with some of the most effective organizations I have seen. Architecture for Humanity is one of them. Architecture for Humanity is not only rebuilding schools, but they are empowering and teaching local builders and construction workers how to build up to international standards and codes. They're doing incredible work, and we were honored to be asked to shine a light on some of the work that they're doing on the ground. And I just want to show you a brief clip from that as well.
Donc, tout chercheur en haut, nous courir descendre et nous venons camper dans mi-temps la quoi dans vide pour ne pas gagner l'autre caille. Donc, nous n'avons aucun chercheur pas victime ici.
Architecture for Humanity travail par rapport avec les gens qui l'a fait construction pour l'IA. Pas simplement dire qu'on l'a fait tel bagage, mais la PC essayer de travailler projet à tout par rapport avec l'idée moun qui l'a fait projet à vous.
Même temps l'architecture pour l'humanité, ça veut dire son monde, c'est son groupe qui font bagage qui sorti de l'ordinaire.
It wasn't just the earthquake aspect of it why it was such a total chaos. It was more the building side, the construction side that people have overseen and think, you know, it's okay to keep a couple steps to make a couple bucks. And with Architecture for Humanity, we are so driven to create jobs and teaching the locals how to do it right.
J'aime la construction à fait là, je pense que c'est un tremblement de terre pour gens qui a fait le bien fond là, je pense que la pas écrasé. Je pense que c'est tremblement de terre a écrasé même qu'il t'a venu avec un paquet. Même que volume de monter bien haut, je pense que c'est capable d'écraser.
So the images that you just saw are not the typical images that we're seeing coming from Haiti here. But you've just seen it, and I've seen it, and this kind of progress is happening. And you know what? I think the adage is true. You find what you seek in this world. And imagine how much better this world would be if we all sought out these kinds of stories. Because stories have a multiplier effect. If we shine a light on problems, others will too. But if we make the choice to shine a light on progress, I promise you others will follow, and we can come together and help build upon these kinds of efforts to make a truly massive difference in this world. So 2 things. Demand this kind of media, demand these kinds of stories, seek them out. Not all of us can travel halfway around the world, but we can choose to seek out those beacons of light. Those nonprofits, those blogs, those publications, whose job it is to tell these kinds of stories and to change lives. Also, seek this out in your personal life. Take an opportunity to visit Joplin or New Orleans. Take an opportunity to visit with a friend who is overcoming a personal loss. And seek out these stories from survivors, not just in the immediate aftermath, but in the months and the years that follow. Be curious, be compassionate, be open, and be optimistic. And don't forget to share your story, the lessons you have learned with the people you meet along the way. Because you never know what kind of impact, what kind of breakthrough that can have for you or for those who are listening. Thank you.